Hello and welcome to Talking Bengals Live podcast. I'm Casey Sprague, joined tonight by Nick, the Hoolie Man Houlihan, and we're going to be discussing various topics in regards to the Bengals. So let me tell you a little bit about Talking Bengals. We are a podcast made with fans for the fans. We want to know what you think about what we're talking about because we're fans just like you. So Nick, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right, and yourself?
I can't complain. I'm pretty sure my weather's better down here than it is in Florence.
Yeah, it's going up and down. Kind of can't really
Had
figure it
75
out.
and sunny the last 3 days, so I can't complain too much. So let's get to a topic that's big and
Our first topic. What is our first topic that we're going to be doing?
The very first time we're going to be covering tonight is Adam Jones's arrest and what the NFL is going to do about it. What do you think?
Well, I think Adam Jones's arrest is just an indicator of his past still staying with him. He's not really bringing anything else to the table other than off the field antics that are just giving us a hard time as a team. They're not allowing us to stay together as a team and build that aspect of we're all in this together. He's showing he's an individual.
So what do you think about the actual charges? Disorderly conduct, preventing official business, aggravated assault with bodily fluid. What is your expert opinion on that?
Well, I wouldn't say expert, but I would say that, you're not going to get charged with something like that, like spitting on an officer or, disorderly conduct, something like that, unless you're being pretty disorderly. You don't really have too many officers out there that are trying to just do whatever they can to screw people's lives up.
So what is your thought process about the Hamilton County prosecutor not wanting to do anything against Jones until after the NFL makes their move?
That's difficult to really have an opinion on, really, because you have the prosecutor who just simply is waiting for how bad are we going to punish these guys? Like what happened, like with the Ray Rice incident. They're going to wait to see if they're going to prosecute. After Roger Goodell decides that he's going to suspend him for 2 years or whatever. It's what they're doing is they're trying to pass the buck, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I really feel like it's, privilege. Athletes are getting some kind of privilege out of this where, if this was me or you doing this kind of things wrong, they wouldn't be going, okay, let's wait and see what their boss does to them. And we're both in the line of work where we do have other forms of punishment where there is internal actions that can happen to us. But I know, at least in what I do, the first and foremost is whatever the civil authorities are going to deem necessary takes precedence. So for an athlete to be punished by the NFL over being punished by the law is just ridiculous.
Yeah, the law's there for the American people, and being part of the American people, he should be just like everybody else in the courtroom.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any special treatment. And speaking of special treatment, what do you think about Joey Porter getting reinstated just in time to go coach in the playoff game this week?
We already know how I feel about the Steelers.
Well, I don't know. His was pretty interesting too. Apparently, he actually not harshly assaulted the police officer, but he grabbed the police officer's wrist and was resisting the attempts to apprehend him and pretty much being drunk and disorderly. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what's going on with Pac-Man Jones right now. They're both getting special treatment for being athletes.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It kind of sickens me a little bit, especially since it's a Steeler. This is not the first time he's had an arrest. And, we've seen what he does on the field last year in the playoff game. What kind of coach runs over and gets in a fight with the player. And then last night after the Chiefs game, him and I can't remember the player's name got into a verbal altercation. It's just not professional. For a coach, you should be held to an even higher standard than a player.
Well, even players, you're getting paid, top dollars to play a game that, how many people, at least do we know, that would love to be in their shoes, that would give whatever we could to be in their shoes, to play professional sports and get paid like they do. But even so, on the coach's level, I mean, you're the example. You got to set this. You got to set the tone for the rest of your team. And when you have a coach that's doing the things that Porter's doing, it doesn't make anything better for the rest of the team, and it goes to impact negatively on your team, the franchise, and the history of your team.
Oh, I agree 100%. Do you think the league is actually going to do any kind of punishment before the Steelers out of the playoffs? Because I personally do not see that happening.
That's hard. That's hard to come up with a good opinion on, because they've been so, they were quick on some things, and other things they're like, oh, we're going to wait 4 months. So it's kind of tough to even think that, with Adam Jones, they're probably, they were so quick to suspend him, or Burfict was suspended last year, for example, for the head-to-head contact or targeting, whatever he was called for. And then you had the Steelers linebacker who goes head-to-head with Gio, and doesn't get any repercussions at all.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know there'll be uproar in Cincinnati if Adam Jones is, suspended for the season and Joey Porter's on the sideline week 1. I mean, Cincinnati will just go nuts at that point.
Yeah, that'll be a double standard.
Well, we're pretty used to double standards when it comes to the Steelers. All right, so moving on to another pressing topic right now, and I know it's one that's got me very curious, is what are the Bengals going to do in free agency? What do you think our top free agents that need to be re-signed are?
I would say Whitworth, number 1. I mean, he's been the backbone of our line. I mean, you surround him with good, solid linemen. You possibly bring in somebody from, that's a free agent from another team that has experience, and you build your line around them. And having that experience on the line is going to allow them to really succeed and be able to protect Dalton. I mean, they did a terrible job at that this year.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Trey Kirkpatrick, the Bengals are almost in a situation, I think, that they have to re-sign Trey Kirkpatrick, because, in my opinion, they need to let Adam Jones go no matter how much they're going to have to pay him.
Well, let's go back to Whitworth for just a minute. I mean, Sportstrack.com has said that Andrew Whitworth is the best offensive tackle that's available in all of free agency this year. And the Bengals need a tackle because the two we've drafted, you got Aboihi and Fisher, just not quite panning out as the tackle types. But that brings into an interesting part of the argument, then what do you do about Kevin Zeitler? Because I don't see signing 2 major offensive linemen in one offseason.
I don't know. I would keep the experience over Zeitler. Zeitler seems to be kind of iffy in pass rushes, being able to get really hands-on and get up in them and keep them away from Dalton. They see a lot of rushes coming back into Dalton from his side. I don't like that. You have to be aggressive on a pass, on a pass block, and you got to be real physical to get up in their pads and stay with them. And I mean, Whitworth, he knows how to work hard. He knows how to lead a O-line, and it'd be nice to have somebody that's strong with him that we could pick up from somewhere else, maybe with some trades, or maybe with a good off-season pickup.
Well, I think keeping Whitworth is absolutely the most important top priority at free agency, because he's not only the best tackle you have, really he's the only tackle that the Bengals have.
I mean, he's the only real lineman that we have.
Very true. With Zeitler, you're going to let him go, but you have a sunk cost in Cedric Aboihi, who cannot play tackle, but he's young enough and we're going to have him for a little while longer. Why can't we try moving him inside to guard? I think that could be an option because he's a big guy. He's a talented guy, first-round draft pick. So instead of just writing him off completely and just, paying his money for the next couple of seasons, why don't we go ahead and try to move him inside and give us a guard from inside the system?
Yeah, try to use him. We got him. Why not try to use him? We already know he's talented. Let's see how talented he is somewhere else.
I mean, looking at the rest of the offensive line and different offensive free agents, Eric Winston, I don't think they should keep him, but will they probably keep him? Yes, because, the different connections he has, president of the Players Association for several times around, so he'll probably end up staying, I think. But so we'll quickly just rush right past him because that's not an important one. Nobody really cares if we keep him. He's just there for what he brings off the field. So sticking with the offense, let's go with Rex Burkhead. What are your thoughts?
Rex Burkhead. Oh, how about you go first and let me let me think of a nice way to go about it.
You got to digest that one a little bit, I guess. Well, I was actually on a podcast with Stripe Hype right before the season last year, and I kept trying to make the argument that you needed to do running back by committee, Jeremy Hill, Gio Bernard, and Rex Burkhead. 88 Bengals, when you had Stanley Wilson, James Brooks, and Ickey Woods. It gives you three different dynamics. You have your power back, which is going to be the Hill or Woods. You have your speed back, which is going to be your Brooks or Bernard. And then you have your kind of all-around back who's not great, but good enough to give you that third punch, and that would be your Burkhead or Stanley Wilson. But no, of course, the Bengals want to take this guy with a huge heart, good hard work ethic, and they want to just sit him on the bench unless it's special situations, somebody gets hurt, or special teams. I think they have missed the boat on a great player because somebody saw what he did the last couple weeks of the season, and they're going to sign him to maybe not make him the outright starter, but give him a chance to compete for a starting job. So I don't see the Bengals being able to afford to re-sign him.
I mean, Burkhead's a great number 2 running back at the very least for any team. I mean, you have, a guy who's a hard-nosed, football player. He's not afraid to get hit, and he's proven that. And he's proven that he's going to work hard and run downhill. Jeremy Hill, he's good, but, you also got Gio and Burkhead, and you don't use them all the way they need to be used when you have that. Like the comparison you were making with the what was it, the 88 Bengals you were talking about?
Yep, the 88 AFC Championship Bengals. I mean, that brings another point with Burkhead. So if you're going to re-sign Burkhead to pretty much do the job he has done, you're going to have to pay him a lot more money going forward. His rookie deal is done. You're going to have to pay him more money going forward, which all you're using for is special teams and special situations. You could use Cedric Pierman, who's already proven as a good special teamer, for a lot less money.
Yeah, at that point, see what you're saying. We're kind of be screwing the pooch a little bit. I mean, you kind of wasted your time with Burkhead. So
I agree. So moving on to the last big offensive category to talk about here, Brandon LaFell. He was a surprise for me. I did not see him playing this well this year. I expected him to be the same guy he was in New England, dropping passes, missing obvious situations. Sounds like I'm picking this up by myself for a minute, so just let me know when you're back.
All right.
Yeah, but Brandon LaFell is one of those guys who was dynamic this year. His response and how he actually came about for Cincinnati was just unbelievable. A.J. Green goes down unexpectedly. Nobody could see that this was going to happen, and he was having the best year of his career, hands down, by far. 36 yards away from 1,000, he missed, 6 games? So they really had a big hole there because Boyd was just not quite there. And Cody Core, though I have faith in him, which we'll get to later, and I feel like he could be a great player for Cincinnati, him and Tyler Boyd were just not quite there. And a lot fell on Brandon LaFell, who surprisingly, against what he's done in recent years, actually picked it up and became a number 1 receiver. Now, I was shocked in Houston to see him run as fast as he did because I never thought he had breakaway speed, but he made Houston look pretty bad on that great long reception. And unfortunately, I just don't see the Bengals wanting to re-sign him because they just don't need him. I think Tyler Boyd's development will be better going into year 2. Cody Core will actually step up and even compete for the number 2 job. And Brandon LaFell wants more than a 1-year deal. So all the Cincinnati's probably going to offer him is 1 year because he's an older player. He's getting up there. 30 years old for a wide receiver is not young by any means. And he doesn't have the breakaway speed typically. I mean, Houston was the exception to the rule. But I just do not feel like the Bengals are going to make him any kind of competitive offer. He could go other places and get better offers. And what Cincinnati really needs is a deep threat. And there'll be better wide receivers available in free agency that are deep threats. Or you can even look in the draft. Maybe Cody Cord gets even better as a deep threat, or Tyler Boyd, even though he's more of a possession receiver than a breakaway speed receiver. I just don't see the Bengals going after Brandon LaFell very seriously or very hardcore. And I'm pretty sure everybody's heard me on a plateau enough about Brandon LaFell. So if you got any closing thoughts, chime in real quick.
I think Brandon LaFell is he is what he is. He's a good receiver. He's going to be a good backup. I think he came out and he performed well this year, and he kind of deserves a spot. You can't just tell him no.
I like it. I like it.
You performed, man.
I will give you that. He did perform, but I just think the youngsters will come out and the Bengals won't offer him nearly as much as he wants. He's going to want a multi-year deal, like I said a few minutes ago, and I just feel like the Bengals won't offer him what he's looking for.
Oh, no, they won't. The Bengals are known for that.
All right, so let's switch it over to defense now. I think without a doubt the Bengals are going to be saying goodbye to one of their longest defensive staples, the mountain that is Domata Peko. His performance has been down the last couple of years. He's 32 years old, and I just really cannot see the Bengals wanting to stick with him in the D-line.
God, I love Peko, though. Such a great guy. It's going to be hard seeing him leave if he does, in fact, leave at the Bengals, let him go. That's all I could say. It'd just be hard to see him leave, for me at least.
Yeah, they're going to be – he's been there for so long. He's a career Bengal, loves the Cincinnati area, goes to church right out over there at Seven Hills Church. And, he's a big part of the community. And to see a guy like that just be told, we don't want you anymore, it stinks, but that's just the name of the game. If you're not producing – you got to earn your paycheck. It doesn't matter what you're doing, how great you are in the community. Like I've argued in some of my articles before, you have to do what you're paid to do. You remember Doug Pelfrey, great guy, did all kinds of things for the community. But when he started missing kicks, you got to let go. You got to be able to produce. And unfortunately, Domata is just not producing at the same level that he was.
And Peko is just a great guy, though.
He is. But I'm going to go back to your Drake Kirkpatrick argument. I think they should absolutely let Kirkpatrick go. I think for how many years he's been in the system, his progression, was he a top 10 corner? I keep hearing people say this year, yes, maybe he was a top 10 corner. But how bad is the rest of the NFL at corner right now? Because Drake Kirkpatrick's in the top 10 as many times as he gets burned, how many tackles he misses, how many plays he's just behind on. Wow, that just shows how bad the rest of the NFL is.
Well, that's what you said about Reggie Nelson. Then the same game we're talking bad about Reggie. What was that, 2 picks? One was a pick 6.
And it could have been, but Reggie Nelson was at least, I think, had better skill sets than Dre Kirkpatrick. I just don't think Dre is going to ever pan out to be that shutdown corner. And I just think Pac-Man's regression on the field this year, as well as his arrest, is just pretty much killing the Bengals because they're going to either be left with 2 very unproven guys with Denard and the first-round draft pick from last year. I cannot remember his name for some reason off the top of my head right now. William Jackson III. Yeah, so they'll be left with William Jackson III or Darqueze Denard, and that's pretty scary. So either Kirkpatrick or Pac-Man is going to stick around. I know we'd rather see Pac-Man than Kirkpatrick than Pac-Man, but I don't know. I wish we could get rid of both of them and get somebody else's quality.
Yeah, but I would love to be able to get rid of just Pac-Man. To be quite honest with you, I'm done with watching Pac-Man on and off the field. His attitude, he's shown that he can't control himself.
His antics are a little bit out of control, and maybe this will be another year where we first-round draft pick a corner. I really hope not. I hope we get a linebacker or some kind of pass rusher
Yeah, we need a good D line.
Maybe it's another safety or corner. God help us if that's what they do.
We need everybody.
I mean, everybody, I don't know if I'd go quite as far as everybody, but we do need a lot of help. We need an offensive line, a D line, linebackers. There's some secondary help that needs to be had. Maybe one more good wide receiver. Can we find a running back?
Well, I mean, as long as AJ Green's good next year, I mean, I think we'll be, we're pretty good at the receivers. We just need that solid 4 or 5 receiver to come in and give AJ a break. And
well, who do you see as the number 2 receiver next year?
It's a good question. I mean, who would you put there?
I honestly think you'll see a battle between Tyler Boyd and Cody Core, who early in the season you're going to see Tyler Boyd actually stepping up and being that number 2, but kind of in a Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu way. Cody Core, I think, is actually going to surpass him as the solid number 2, and Boyd's going to stay in the slot because the Bengals run a lot of 3 receiver formations anyway. So therefore, you'll still see a lot of Boyd, and he'll get a lot of features, but Core, I think, is the better outside receiver.
Yeah, it's a good argument. I would have to agree. I don't think I can argue against that. And you know how I like to argue against you.
I get to silence the holy man. That makes me feel great about myself. All right, so let's move on into our next segment here. This is kind of something we were brainstorming and talking about. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to tell me what you think, whether you're going to roast it or boast it. So the very first question we got, Jeremy Hill will be the number 1 running back for the Cincinnati Bengals going into 2017.
I think we're going to boast it. I think he's going to be training harder than ever this year. And I think he sees that he's the running back the Bengals want. My son's laughing at me, but I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right because it'd be nice to see Jeremy Hill run downhill the way he needs to.
Now, I'm going to wish I could say roasted and that we get rid of him, but I'm going to have to boast it as well, just knowing Mike Brown and how he operates. Jeremy, in the last year of his rookie deal, he's not going anywhere because they're going to have to pay him one way or the other. And maybe he does play hard. Maybe this is the year he realizes, hey, I'm not only auditioning for this job at Cincinnati, but I'm auditioning for the entire NFL.
Yeah.
Popular year, then who's going to want to sign me? Cincinnati doesn't want to re-sign me. Nobody wants to re-sign me. Then he's going to end up working at a Walmart or something else. And that's probably not what Jeremy Hill wants to do. And I mean, great interior runner. He's great on the goal line. He's just not the kind of guy I think Cincinnati's going to want in the long run unless he's putting in the work.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he on the whole advertising himself thing, he's either going to kick it up a notch because he sees that, hey, this is my last year, and if Cincinnati doesn't take me back after my deal's over, I have to advertise myself at least this year for another team to show them that I can do it and make it worth their while for taking me.
So that brings up another question. Stick with the running back. And is Giovanni Bernard going to bounce back and be 100% this season?
I don't know. I hope so. Having his side to side and second and longs, being able to run the ball in second and long with him, to know that he could break one for a good 15 to 20 yards. That's a good thing to have. But I don't know. I don't think it'd be right to speculate on whether or not he's going to be 100% until we see him.
So we're toeing the line of the roast or boast right there.
Yeah, I'm going to be sitting on the fence on that one. I'm not going to roast or boast him.
I feel like I'm going to have to boast that he'll be 100% because Cincinnati needs him. Right now, the running back situation without Gio Bernard, you're just getting that very, very, very vanilla Jeremy Hill out of the backfield. Jeremy Hill running up the middle. Jeremy Hill not making anything happen. Jeremy Hill getting tackled for a 5-yard loss. And that's not something I really want to watch. So moving on to our next question. Roasted or boasted? Ray Malaluga will be a Bengal at the start of the season.
Roast, 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 roast. When I say roast more, just roast.
Roast times
That needs
infinity.
an explanation for it. Just roast him. Um, he's not stepped up the way he needs to. He is supposed to be a leader, and he's not.
I think for Malaluga, to be the quote unquote captain at one point, then all of a sudden an undrafted rookie free agent comes in, takes your job, is the best linebacker on the team when you're the quote unquote stud out of USC who's supposed to be the greatest linebacker that we've had in a long time. And he's just never stepped up. He misses too many games. I mean, you have to roast him. There's no other choice. I feel like USC running or linebackers and the Cincinnati Bengals are terrible together. Keith Rivers is another one. Oh, he's going to be the greatest thing ever. Gets his jaw broken, never makes it back. Ray Malaluga, come on. Just roast every USC linebacker. Keep them away from Cincinnati.
Yeah, they come to Cincinnati and they're soft.
I think it's a USC problem. Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer.
Oh, my knee.
Yeah, so we all want Ray gone. Please get rid of Malaluga. He's just taking up a roster spot. And you could take him off completely and then promote another Ray called Vincent Ray.
Yeah, which is a
actually
hard
play.
worker and will hit people.
Exactly. That's what the Bengals need, more hard-nosed people who make plays, play hard, and don't just sit over there and do nothing.
I got a question for you. What do you think about Vontaze Burfict?
Ooh, Vontaze Burfict.
Now let me start on it. I'll give you my little take. I see him kind of like a Ray Lewis, a hard-nosed football player who wants to hit people hard and doesn't really think about the consequences while he's hitting somebody. And I think you need that aggression on your defense, especially in your linebacker core, to have that. I think that's something that you need. But is he smart enough to stay?
That's a good argument. I mean, he is, in my opinion, the best interior linebacker in the league. Now, is that biased? I'm a huge Bengals fan, of course, but I've even heard other people talk about it from around the league. He is a great interior linebacker, and he is the catalyst for that defense. Without him, they're not nearly as good. They struggle. They're not motivated. When he came back this season, they became completely better, 100% better. They stopped struggling as much. But his biggest problem is what he does when he doesn't use his head. Getting personal fouls, getting in people's faces, pushing people down for no reason. I understand you want to play hard, you want to intimidate people, but you can't play dirty. You're hurting your team.
Yep, I agree. And that's the smart part. I feel as though, using your head after the play's over, using your brains, your common sense, getting you through the play to make you, to make the play and just make the play and act like you've been there before. It's one of those things that I think he may struggle with if we don't address that issue in the locker room.
Well, he needs to get somebody to get him under control, whether it's the defensive coordinator with Gunther, whether it's Marvin Lewis, whether it's another player. Somebody needs to just say, you are a great player. You're a leader on this team, and we need you to always be a leader on this team. Use your head. Don't hurt the team. Don't cause us to lose games or yardage. It's suspended because whenever you're not on the field, we're not as good.
Exactly.
Now that we've beaten that dead horse for a while, let's move on to our next roasted or boasted question. A.J. McCarron will be a Bengal at the start of the season.
You go first on that one. I'll defer to you.
I'm going to say roasted. He should not be a Bengal at the start of this coming season. Why? Yes, he's a good backup. We've seen what he can do on the field, but we can get some value for him right now. We've gotten a lot of value for him after last season where we saw what he could do on those 4-game stretch and then how well he played in the playoffs, bringing them back and actually winning the game that Jeremy Hill fumbled away. Burfict and Pac-Man Jones decided to do their thing, and they pretty much somehow gave away an easy win. He fought all the way back, so we saw how resilient he is. So there's value. And I really hope the Bengals don't do it, but the most dangerous place that I could see him going would be Cleveland. I know Hugh Jackson enjoyed having him as, one of his quarterbacks. And face it, Cleveland's not going to draft a quarterback, I don't think, this year. It doesn't make any sense for them to draft a quarterback. I don't think anyone's good enough to be an NFL quarterback. And who they have on the roster is just not quality enough. So I could see them trying to go after McCarron if they could get him for the right price.
I say boast it, because I see Andy
Ooh.
Dalton getting hurt again this upcoming year. It's a Bengals habit. Any decent quarterback we have, how long has he been on the team now? Coming up on 6 years this year? Look at Palmer. Look at, all the other decent quarterbacks that the Bengals have ever had. Same time frame. We need to have a good backup. We need to have that Dak Prescott. We need to have, Tom Brady when he was the backup to Bledsoe. We need that. And to have a strong quarterback who's been there, like AJ has, and he's been there to back up and come in and win game. Yeah. I mean, I think you boasted. I think you try to get him for the best price you can get him. And you may even go a little bit overboard because, quarterback 6 years into his career and hasn't really been too terribly seriously injured. And, God forbid something happened to Dalton at this point, but you got to plan for it. You can't plan for what if. You got to plan for when. You know that one as I do.
And a fact check is there. It's actually year 7 for Dalton. I had to count, do my Alabama math and get 7 fingers up. But with McCarron, I think the interesting question on top of that would be, so let's say your theory is right and Dalton does go down. Does McCarron take the Bengals to the playoffs?
I think it's very likely he could.
Okay, let's step it one step further. If he takes them to the playoffs, is that the end of the Andy Dalton era?
Of course it is, because Andy Dalton's done what? He's taken us to the first game of the playoffs, and we lose.
So if McCarron can step up, take us to the playoffs, and win a playoff game for what should be the second time, then he's got the job and it's his.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that is a fair assessment. I think that when you have a backup quarterback who has been there, he's paid his dues. He's there. He's waited for it, and he showed, he's got the ability to do the job, and he does the job. You've already given a guy, like you said, now 7 years, is a year longer than what I thought it would be. It's even longer. Dalton's had this long to prove himself, and about the only thing he's been able to prove is that he can get us to a playoff game.
And then implode on himself.
And he chokes.
That'll conclude Roasted or Boasted for this week. So let's move on to NFL news. Probably one of my favorite NFL news. The Chargers now move.
Pardon me. Let me mute my mic. My son's talking to me.
Yeah. He's got opinions on this. He doesn't like the Chargers going to LA. But yeah, so with the Chargers moving to LA, now you have 2 teams, not just one, but 2 teams in a city that has never been able to support a pro football team for very long. You've had the Rams there previously. You've had the Raiders there previously. So instead of just putting the Rams there and saying, hey, let's figure out how this is going to work this time around, the NFL decides, let's put 2 franchises there. So let's put the Chargers and the Rams, in a city that never supports pro football to an extent to where they can keep a team. And not to mention, I don't know if you've taken a look at the Chargers' new logo, but I saw something from the Tampa Bay Lightning NHL team where they said that they swear them and the Dodgers are just friends because it looks like you took their two logos and just morphed them to make the Los Angeles Chargers logo.
Are we still doing roasted or boasted on this? Because I'm going to roast it. I hate the idea. I think Los Angeles has already proven themselves to not support a professional anything team ever well at all. I agree with you that, they haven't even given the Rams a shot. They haven't given anybody a shot. And they haven't held anybody for long. They haven't had. I mean, you're already doing halfway decent in San Diego. Why would you move to Los Angeles? I think that the owner is, for lack of a better term, a little on the slow side for moving him to Los Angeles. He's going to not only lose money in the move, but he's going to lose money in the long run.
Oh, and you're losing a whole fan base. I mean, you can't tell me that those people in San Diego are going to remain Chargers fans now that they're in LA.
Cleveland. Cleveland.
Cleveland needs fans. Well, they can jump on the Cincinnati bandwagon. We could always use more fans, I guess. And we're not going anywhere. At least, hopefully, we're not. Then I'd have to find
I was going more for the moving the Browns to Baltimore, then bringing another team back to Cleveland.
Yeah, well, I don't think San Diego is going to get another team until the Chargers come back in a few years. I mean, so Los Angeles now has 2 basketball teams, 2 baseball teams, and 2 football teams. Maybe they have 2 hockey teams. I don't know. I don't watch hockey. But 2 of every major sport, and none of them are worth mentioning right now. Really. I mean,
hey, why don't we bring a professional football team to Lexington or Louisville or, I don't know, Georgetown? I don't know. Crap, I mean, we have a better chance of supporting a professional team. I mean, seriously, bring them down here. Let us have something.
Yeah, give Kentucky its own team.
Yeah, we'll be like the Bluegrass State something or another. I don't know.
Well, speaking of moves, though, the moving's not done, it doesn't sound like, as the Raiders are going to try to send their application into the league to move to Las Vegas, which I just blows my mind. But then again, the Raiders would be the team I'd see in Las Vegas.
I would highly doubt that the commissioner is going to allow that, or the owners, whatever they are, the owners commission or whatever they're called. I very highly doubt that.
I don't know. I mean, Vegas has been petitioning for a team for years now, and I mean, like I said, the Raiders are that kind of trashy. They'd be perfect in Vegas.
True. But yeah, I doubt that they're gonna try to move a team to Las Vegas. You kind of have heat indexes of well over 100, and it doesn't bode well for football players, especially when you're talking about guys who are wearing full pads and especially the linemen who are 300 plus pounds.
I don't know. It can't be too much different than Miami or Tampa or any of those type areas where it gets extremely hot. But I think you'd have to worry more about the players' extracurricular activity on game day or the night before a game. I mean, you're in Vegas. The whole hotel's going to have a casino in it.
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do? Pete Rose all the players? I mean, I'm glad you got that reference, but I mean, seriously, if you're going to ban every player for gambling on a game, you should probably not bring a team to the gambling capital of the United States.
Yeah, but I think it'd be interesting to hear the scandals. Think about how many different stories you get. Who's playing in Las Vegas this week? What did they do? What stripper did they hook up with, or what casino did they get kicked out of?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have that all over CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all the ESPNs, all the way out to Ocho, and I mean, it's just you're what you're creating is you're creating a media firestorm, and that team's never going to get any press that is worthwhile ever.
I don't know. I still think it'll end up happening. I don't think it's a smart decision. Again, I don't like that these teams are moving cities, but I think it'll end up happening just because the NFL anymore is all about change. They want to change where the extra points kicked from. They want to change where the kickoff is. They want to change how far a touchback goes. They just want to change. They don't want to stay the same. They think everything since, the Obama's first administration where, I'm here for change, everybody thinks everything has to be about change. And I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about the whole field goal change for the extra point. That's going to have to be a whole nother topic on a whole different podcast.
Yeah, maybe we'll throw that one in.
I have some very strong feelings about that one.
All right. So speaking of next podcast, we're kind of starting to wind down here. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes to bring up anything you'd like to say in closing.
I would like to say in closing, first and foremost, Pac-Man Jones needs to go. He has shown not only in the past but in the present, and he will show in the future, because history is a terrible, terrible way of repeating itself, as we have seen with every incident that Pac-Man's been involved in. He's got to go, and at this point, you just got to count your losses with the money you're going to be paying him, and call it a day, and just replace him. He's a replaceable player, and he's got to go. We need a kicker, a place kicker. That will be another podcast. The same podcast about the PAT.
So in closing, what I got for this week is, unfortunately, Marvin Lewis is not going anywhere. I don't know why the Bengals are going to stick with him again. I know he's under contract, and that is a Mike Brownism. We can't spend money on somebody and not make them do their job, which would make sense if they were doing their job to begin with. But Cincinnati is missing out on a lot of great possible coaches this year. I feel like next year, after Marvin's contract is up, the market's going to be much thinner. You're not going to have as many good people to go after. The defensive coordinator from New England's a guy I like. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. He's not going to be there. You're also, I'm not a Steelers guy. I hate the Steelers so much, but Todd Haley's probably not going to be there. You're just missing out on a whole lot of good possible head coaches. And you're not going to have anybody to go to. You're going to have to promote, Paul Gunther or Ken Zampese, which is absolutely insane. Those are not the kind of people you need as a head coach. Cincinnati needs some fresh blood. They need somebody that's going to lead this team, because you have a playoff and Super Bowl caliber team. A.J. Green's going to be back. Andy Dalton performed outstanding this year, considering he had no offensive line. His best weapons were hurt pretty much all the season, but he still produced. And they're just going to throw him away and say, oh, well, let's let Marvin have one more shot at it. 20th time's the charm, it seems like, for them. I know it's not been that many years, but I wish I had this many chances to do good at everything in my life, just be very mediocre. And Cincinnati is buying into mediocrity, which is a travesty. And they need to just find a coach who can get us to that next level. And it happens. You've seen Denver, fire a guy. 2 years later, you're in the Super Bowl. And so it's not the only thing that the Bengals can do. They just refuse to change.
That's ownership. It is ownership. Yeah. I completely 100% agree with you. I think Marvin needs to go. I think he needs to go, and I think they need to make that change this offseason. If they don't make that change, it's going to be never a good thing for them. I don't think it's going to be a good thing for them at all if they don't make the change at the head coach position, especially with the aforementioned coaches that you were speaking of.
And I hope I'm wrong. I hope Marvin sticks around and we win the Super Bowl and I have to eat some humble pie this time next year, or, a couple of weeks from now. I'll be totally okay with it. I will be the happiest I've ever been to be wrong, but I just don't see it coming. But we will be back next week with more Talking Bengals Live. We'll be back at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Central next Monday night. Nick, you got anything to say before we get out of here?
Thank you guys for listening, if you were actually listening.
Have a great night. We'll see you guys next week.